good morning from India and good afternoon from Australia. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this session on Bridging the Learning Gap with Digital Tools, a collaborative initiative of Association of Indian Principals and Matific. Just to give you the brief about what these two organizations are and what we do exactly. So Association of Indian Principals is a non-profit organization for educational leaders and other stakeholders with the purpose to facilitate knowledge sharing, empower education leaders, and instill leadership in the education sector. We provide a platform to principals, heads of educational institutions, and other stakeholders to discuss and explore opportunities to strengthen the education system while collectively addressing the challenges in order to shape India in the 21st century. We also offer an opportunity to the education leaders to work in groups at district, state, and national level to exchange ideas supported by India's top minds from education, government, industry, social, cultural sector to shape critical thinking and strengthen India's social fabric through education. Our focus is also on creating a robust infrastructure to develop sustainable solutions, meeting the needs of principals community and strengthening the participation from education leaders and other stakeholders to collectively meet India's future needs. Coming to Matific, Matific.com is a digital gamified maths platform founded by leading mathematicians who work in the field of early age learning. Based in Sydney, they operate globally with their platform being used by millions of learners in 60 countries, including various agreements with nearly 20 Ministry of Education. And now let me introduce to you all our esteemed panel for today. We have amongst us, pardon me for introducing myself, so we'll skip that part as a moderator. So I am also the Director of Association of Indian Principals and Director Skills Reform. And rest you can find me on LinkedIn to connect with me. I'll come to the panelists first. Our first panelist is Dr. Karandeep Singh, Head of Schools and Academic, Director at the Vels Academy, pardon me for that, and Oxford and Cambridge IB and CELTA qualified CEO and Senior Director with over 20 years of experience in the K-12 and EdTech industry, managing businesses, students and faculty from 30 nationalities across England, Australia, Thailand, and India. He's an ambassador to the United Nations for the Sustainable Development Goals 2030, representing Niti Aayog from the Indian government. Mr. Singh has been featured by the Forbes magazine as a change maker entrepreneur, recently being featured in the Fortune 500 list of entrepreneurs of the year 2021. When Dr. Karandeep Singh graduated from Oxford University, United Kingdom, armed with a master's with first-class honors in audio production, little did he know that he would be using his creative prowess, laced with business acumen, to steer forward the ship of education in India. Driven by a firm belief to transform the education setup to make it more sustainable and aligned with the need of the hour, he initiated many future-ready projects in top-ranking schools of the country. And to give a further thrust to his goals, he obtained CELTA from Cambridge University and Bachelor's in Education from University of Phoenix, post which he has been conducting Cambridge training workshops across the country. So welcome to you, Dr. Singh.
Thank you so much, Ms. Chetna, for such a wonderful introduction and covering so many aspects. I'm absolutely excited, elated, and humbled to be here. And I'm looking forward to an amazing session. And I also want to thank the Association of Indian Principals and Matific for bringing such people together in such a platform. I think it's a wonderful experience. Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we have the stalwart of education, Dr. Vasudha Neelmani, who's the principal at Rockwoods International School, Udaipur. Dr. Neelmani is a profound and illustrious educationist with over 27 years of experience, spanning across teaching, administration, mentoring, and advisory role, with 16 years in Cambridge education and 10 years in leadership roles. She has been consulting numerous schools to implement international curriculum and have conducted audits, which is a very important part of school stakeholders these days, and a double master's in psychology and education and a special educator by profession. Dr. Neelmani has worked towards bringing about a decisive change in the Indian education system and put it on par with global standards. With the motto of being a lifelong learner, she has also accomplished a certificate course in career coaching by Mindler, the CDA USA. And Dr. Neelmani is an international certified career coach. She has also completed the first level inspector audit training with Penta to be an inspector and auditor in the schools with British curriculum. Being a lifelong learner, she has completed certified career service provider credential from Mindler and NCDA USA. Besides, she has successfully completed a CITTT diploma program by Cambridge University, and her module is on skills to be an effective teacher. With an overall distinction, she scored 3 distinctions in planning, assessment, and evaluation, and a pass in the practice. So I welcome you, Dr. Neelmani, here on this forum.
Thank you so much.
And I look forward. And next we have our Industry Connect from Matific, Mr. Andrew Crisp, who's the head product and innovation Matific. He was an award-winning mathematics lecturer at the University of Sydney before he moved to the ed sector. He has dedicated his life to inspiring a lifelong love of learning in students across the globe. Today, he works with instructional designers, software developers, university academics, and classroom teachers to create cutting-edge product solutions for mathematics education. He's involved in every aspect of the learning experience within Matific, from individual content pieces, designing the metagame to reinforce good learning habits, the adaptive technology that underpins the student-led journey, and the interface that teachers use to help them achieve their learning goals. He's particularly fond of geometry and puzzles of every kind. And so welcome.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
And we do have a little twist to this session that will be revealed to you after section 1. So before I start with these, so the topic is the bridging learning gaps with digital tools. And I was reading a report yesterday, which has come out with the National Achievement Survey, which says that there have been almost a learning loss or learning gap of 9% from 2017 to 2021. And there could not have been the best option for us to discuss this with this Academia Industry Connects, with Matific from Australia and Dr. Karan from Erode and Dr. Neelmani from Udaipur, from 3 different parts of the country or the world, I would say. So beginning with my first part of it, Dr. Karan, the question is for you. When we talk about learning gaps, so how would you define a learning gap with your experience? And especially, I would like to see it in the light of the Sustainable Development Goals as well. So if you could just throw some light on that. So this question is for you.
Thank you, Ms. Chetan. Thank you for the question, sir. A very valid question. It's a question that's been on the minds of educationists right from inception, and it's a question that keeps evolving in itself. But when we talk about learning gaps, especially if we look at the emphasis of what's happening in the world and we look at the Sustainable Development Goals from the United Nations, see the learning gap, which has been a problem for India, is that we are not able to convert the logic of knowledge into practical outcome-based learning. So outcome-based learning is something that all of us agree that, okay, a lot of boards like Cambridge, IB, and curriculums are trying to come up with experiential hands-on learning. When we apply that to the SDGs, the Sustainable Goals, so what's happening is an interesting revolution in India right now. So the central government, along with a lot of international bodies like Meta, like Facebook, they're all coming up with creating a new ecosystem where project-driven learning is going to be, the typical stereotypical term that we use, the new normal. So the project-based learning is basically for all educators to bring in and incorporate the United Nations Sustainable Goals into curriculum. And interestingly, a lot of our schools are already doing that without. So when we talk about the learning gap, the gap that we're seeing is knowledge assimilation is strong in India. Because we are a colony from the British Empire, and we've been very strong in assimilating knowledge. However, the transformation of that knowledge into practical skills is what is still, an area that we want to work upon. So that I would say is the key area. And I think that is also something where the United Nations is primarily working on. I believe, I hope I'm audible, Ms. Chetna. I think I lost the connection there for a second.
No,
I hope I'm audible to everyone.
Yeah, you are audible. Yeah, good.
Yeah, so in a nutshell, I just wanted to reiterate that learning gap is nothing but being able to use the knowledge that you have, A, and the second big learning gap is leadership skills. And the world leaders that we have right now and the way the world is being shaped up, the only way we can have a sustainable future is if we have compassionate leaders. So leadership skills are not just about winning or about materialistic success, it's also about developing the human being. So I think there's another learning gap which I wanted to highlight, which is between the person and the knowledge. So if we can bring these two together, I think you would find a lot of solutions. And that's where we're working with the United Nations to create an ecosystem for, bridging such a learning gap.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your views on it. And continuing with that, so my second question goes to Dr. Neelmani. What are the best ways, according to you, to identify learning gaps among children? Because that would be the case. So if I go by the report of the National Achievement Survey, it says there have been a gap of almost 9% within the mathematics and languages and sciences as well. And this is the latest report which I'm talking. So, and we have all been working on this. So what would be the best ways according to you? Because I know Rockwood has been very instrumental in adopting technology. So over to you, Dr. Neelmani.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you, Matific. Thank you, Chetna, for this wonderful platform. First, let's understand that, what kind of learning gap students are facing right now. So, during the pandemic time, and you rightly said about the 9% data, but I was going through a research by McKinsey. According to them, in this past 2 years, when this hybrid learning was happening and everything, so students are lagging behind five months, lagging behind in mathematics and 7 months in reading. So, and it is a big gap. But let's understand what are the learning gaps and how we identify them. So there are knowledge learning gaps, so wherein we see that students are not able to match whatever they are learning. So there are conceptual gaps where they have not been able to understand what is happening in the classroom, and how you come to know when a student's responses in the classroom, when the child is not able to perform well in the formative assessments, when we are doing that, how they are doing it. Then there are skill-based learning gaps. Of course, knowledge and skill goes hand in hand. Then there are motivation-based learning gaps. They are not motivated at all. So what has happened is that students have, during the pandemic, students adapted to new ways of learning between virtual and hybrid. And they actually experience significant disruptions. After all, there are the little children, and we as adults faced a lot of issues during that time also. So what happened was that there were significant disruptions in the curriculum schedule. Sometimes glitchy network, sometimes change of teachers, sometimes the class is happening, class is not happening. So they experienced a lot of learning losses and gaps. And as I mentioned earlier, also what is happening more, that a pre-existing educational inequalities were widened more. So whether it was related to environmental factors or communication factors, coming on to environmental gaps. So we are in a country where in 60 to 70% population is in the slums or in the rural area. So what happens, school like ours, who had an extremely robust system where we could give the students the Google ID passwords, or the classes were happening virtually, but there were certain schools where there were no network connection, there was no internet. So what they were doing, it was just because of sharing of the worksheets through WhatsApp, sharing of the worksheets through. So of course, you know, the students went through the lot. So to identify the learning gaps, so the knowledge learning gaps, as I said, you will come to know by their responses in the classroom, their student portfolios, their assessment, and there are many systematic ways also to do that. So when we talk about the systematic ways, is that, you know, doing standardized assessments, you will come to know where your children are standing. So Cambridge has a beautiful system calling we call it a checkpoint system. So we come to know very quickly where our children are lacking, where our children are doing pretty well, or where we need to work on them, and giving them then, see, identifying is not a solution. Now, the next step is that, you know, what are we doing about it? So making the differentiated learning lesson plans, or doing differentiated learning. So that's what we did. We ran the bridge courses, we call it the bridge courses, and we ran those to bridge those learning gaps in the students. And that's very important.
Okay, and thank you for your point of view. And I think knowledge learning gaps and skill-based learning gaps, this is something new for all of us. And it's a lot of takeaway for the participants who are here. Now coming to when we talk about the products, services, the edtech industry, the tools which are available to us. So Andrew, this question is for you. From a product perspective, when we talk about so what is your approach in dealing with the learning gaps? I mean, how Matific specifically, or in general, your experience as a professor, or you have immersed yourself in early years learning. So, and these are actually the formative years for the students when they are actually learning habits, they are forming their structure, whole psychological development and child development. So what are your views on this?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and something that when we talk about a learning gap, this is something that isn't just in India. One of the privileges of working for a company like Matific is that we have schools and students all over the world. And Dr. Vasudha mentioned the McKinsey study that students are about 5 months behind on mathematics. And I think a key thing to realize is that 5 months looks very different from one student to the next. One student might have gaps in some areas and are strong in others, and another student has a completely different set of gaps. And because mathematics in particular, it's other subjects as well, but mathematics builds upon the knowledge. You learn how to add 2-digit numbers, and that lets you learn how to add 3-digit numbers. So if the lesson in the class is adding 3-digit numbers, and the student doesn't know how to add 2-digit numbers, they're going to suffer because of that learning gap. So every student is different. And so it's upon classroom teachers to somehow find a way to determine all the different learning gaps that all their different students have. And this is knowledge gaps. Dr. Karan mentioned other learning gaps, which is particularly important. I just had a conversation with a teacher in South Africa, a year 2 teacher, who was saying that it is extremely difficult for her to teach mathematics because the students are coming back to school for the first time and they're in year 2 and they haven't learned how to sit next to each other like they might in kindergarten. They haven't learned how to share. They haven't learned how to sit quietly in class, the kinds of things that you normally learn in very early education. So she not only, and this is a universal, just an anecdote to say, I believe that this is a universal experience for a lot of teachers in this post-pandemic world, have to deal with the motivation and social learning gap, as well as deal with the various knowledge gaps. So how does a product like Matific come into it? Really what we try to do is we try to facilitate what we call a student-led approach, which means that the first time a student plays in Matific, we give them what is called a placement test. It gives them a quiz on the last 2 years of learning knowledge, just a quick survey of what they know and what they don't know. And after that, we use adaptive technology to take a student, you didn't do so well in this question, right, so we're going to move you back to a prerequisite skill. Still didn't go so well, we'll move you back to a prerequisite skill and build you back up. So for us, we want to visualize for teachers as soon as possible where students' learning gaps are, and we want to help students fill those learning gaps without the teacher necessarily having to go in and coordinate everything. We aim to be an incredibly smart teacher's aid that helps them assign the right activities to the right student without them having to, and flagging for them anything that we believe needs their expert attention. I could go on all day, but I think I'll pause there and wait for the next question.
That's so kind of you to stick to the timeline which we have decided. So I think the first section of it was about identifying and understanding what learning gaps are, and with different perspective, because there could be we can have a worldly view of it, we can have a very microcosm view of it, and also that when we are looking at the digital tools, so how does that actually affects it. So thank you so much to all the panelists for giving us a lot of information and a lot of points to ponder upon. And I think the attendees would be happy. So for the attendees, you can put your questions in the chat box or a Q&A specifically, and we'll take up with all the panelists at the end of this session. When whatever questions you have about Matific, about learning gaps, about this particular topic, or anything else you would like to discuss pertaining to this particular topic. So thank you so much. And we come to the next round of it, which is part 2, which is digital learning tools as solutions. Now, when we are talking about, so there's a digital divide. There is also the, as you said, Andrew, that there is a social well-being which is there. And we human beings are definitely social animals, we call ourselves, and we cannot live without the tactile movement or connecting with learners or peers, or maybe dealing with, it could be a fight between the two students, it could be maybe exchanging some views, it could be anything for the learners. And I feel that they have missed out for the last 2 years. And as per the one of the report which I was reading, I think it was from World Economic Forum, which says that this particular learning loss which we are facing right now for the last 2 years, from 2020 till 2022, which is ongoing, is something about, it's to the tune of $1,700 million, which is just not these students who are in the school, but also how it is going to impact in future in the employability skills of these, because they would be lacking in social emotional well-being, which is missing at these formative years. So coming to the second round of us, which is Dr. Singh, is for you. What is your expectation when we talk about digital tools, when we talk about blended learning, when we talk about blending technology with the classroom situations? So how do you feel that expectations, your expectations as a principal, as a leader, from digital tools in bringing and bridging these learning gaps?
That's a good question, Ms. Chetna. So number one, the key word here is we got to pivot. I think we were talking about it. So it's been an interesting journey. I'll give you, like, through the pandemic, year 1 and year 2, having led 2 to 3 startups, edtech startups, in big cities. So having worked as the chief academic officer for Rankpedia, having worked with Byju's as a consultant, senior consultant, and also having consulted a couple of US-based edtech startups like Miles, was the business head. So what I realized in my career, the metamorphosis between a K-12 education system and then coming into edtech, let's say, for example. So the number one challenge, which can be converted into an opportunity, is, see, when we talk about blended learning, right? When we also talk about the macrocosm of what is blended learning, most of the times the issue comes is execution. For example, as Andrew put a really valid point, is working with the human factor of educators. I mean, see, AI can never replace the human quality, but AI can always complement and work with the human quality. So any technological tool that we are using, as long as it has an equilibrium with the human factor, it empowers the educator to actually take the learning forward. B, it actually allows the educator to feel comfortable that yes, they can do it. See, when the first year of the pandemic hit, there was a massive stigma by the private sector on the education system, where teachers who were not able to open Google Classrooms were fired. Teachers who could not open Zoom were fired. That was quite sad to see. So you would have 20 years plus experienced teachers who are excellent lecturers in a physical classroom. But the moment it came to online, of course, it's a different ecosystem. It's a different organism altogether. So there was a lot of, turbulence year one of the pandemic. When we talk about India, we also have to look at statistics. It's very important. When you look at the government data, the GER, we call it, gross enrollment ratio. See, when you talk about the digital divide, you need to understand that there are certain areas in a country where we're sitting in the same country, by the way, Andrew, where we're talking about such important topics, and you're sitting in the same country where half of the country is still putting out posters on the wall, which says, and I'll quote it in Hindi, Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, which basically means save the girl child's fetus and don't kill girls and let them be educated. So there is a massive paradox in the country. The wavelength of the country is interesting. You have areas in a country which still are blackout zones where you get absolutely no connectivity. So when we talk about the reach of digital learning, if you remember in the 90s, the government came out with RTE, Right to Education Act. Then we came out with National Education Policy in 2020, right? These are all steps which in theory sound really well, but how much of RTE has been applicable is a question mark. How much of NEP will be applicable, again, is something that we have to see. So the number one solution that I can see is schools or colleges and edtech companies will have to work on hybrid model. For example, if let's say I am an edtech company, I need to work with a school, I will have to actually understand that particular school, because he again raised a good point, no two kids learn in the same way, right? So if we believe in differentiation for students, then we got to bring in differentiation into our products. We cannot pitch the same way of learning to a school probably which is sitting in Manipur, where that's the beauty of our country. The cultural, diversity is so amazing that if you look at how kids are learning in Manipur versus how kids are learning in Tamil Nadu versus how kids are learning in Himachal. So if I'm an edtech company and I believe in differentiation, I should also have product differentiation. So I should be culturally aware when I'm pitching a product to a certain demographic of the country, which is very true. I mean, if you go to Thailand, if you go to Southeast Asia, there are certain practices which are very different. So as an educator, what would I need to do? I need to do my homework before I go and teach in Thailand. Same thing I have to do. So I've got to respect, I have to understand the community where I am trying to, let's say, teach or bring in my solution. So right now, the present scenario, as we know, edtechs in India, especially Indian-born edtechs, are facing an interesting challenge because schools are open. Parents have an option to move into full-time, offline mode of education. And another area which actually we've been working with the government on is how do we bring in nature-based learning through technology? So if anyone has read the NEP, there's a section in NEP where government is even proposing digital tinkering labs, where you can actually do a physics experiment or a chemistry experiment by doing digital tinkering. The government is supporting that. Local governments are trying to work with edtech companies in India, where they are getting an opportunity to work with the NEP model. But again, I'm repeating, NEP model is still in theory. To an extent, application will happen in 2023. But my biggest concern right now is if the students are to have quality education, they need to have a planet to do it on. So technology work with sustainable education projects. How can technology support the future of sustainable education? Because the last 5 generations, we call it the plastic generations, right? The last 5 generations, we created a problem on the planet. Unfortunately, our kids who are the leaders of tomorrow will have to solve it for us. So we got to come up with an education system. Of course, technology is needed, 100%. But how do we use it optimally? How do we make sure that the educator, the teacher, the student, and the parent, all the stakeholders are able to use it? And how do we give them a platform where they can actually reverse the cycle of, let's say, climate change and other issues that we're facing? So it's not happening just to me. Let's say it's not in my neighborhood. It's happening to the world, right? So the pragmatic question comes at the end of the day is that we want them to have a future, and we want them to do our best. All of us who are sitting here, we want to do best for our kids because we're here for the love of kids. But where do the kids go? Is there a planet for them by 2030? That's the question, right? So I would say, to just sum up, I would say technology and schools and colleges will have to collaborate together and brainstorm and come up with solutions which cater to differentiation, not just from a student's perspective, but from an organization's perspective and also from a region's perspective. I think that would be a way that we could look at it.
Thank you, Dr. Singh, for such a elaborative understanding of what are your expectations and what leaders should expect when we are talking about digital tools. Coming to Dr. Neelmani, when we come, like Dr. Singh said about that the digital divide and the disparity which we have amongst all around, whether it's due to the cultural reasons or whether it's the socio-cultural reasons, how do you think that digital tools complement the existing class teaching methods? Because I think there is a challenge with the teachers also, that how much, though they have adopted and adapted to the situation where they have to do the whether it's a G Suite or Microsoft Team or any kind of a tool, but what is the way forward from here, and how do you think, what will be maybe the percentage, maybe this is a complementary kind of an arrangement which will happen between the digital tools and the classroom teaching methods, which are very effective when we are taking into consideration the differentiated learning which is possible in the classroom situation. So what's your thought on it?
See, every journey is an evolution. So, and I feel that not only today, it is the need of the hour. We cannot be in today's business with yesterday's tools. So if we are not equipped to handle this Gen Z students, how we are going to do that? They find all the answers. I mean, everybody will agree with me. When we were in school, we used to refer to the books. We used to go to the libraries, but now everything is available at a click of a finger. So now teachers also need to understand and that whatever digital technology we are providing or digital tools that are available, they are to strengthen them, not to replace them. So no technology can replace a teacher, but at the same point in time, the teacher he or she will become redundant if she is not upgrading herself with the times to come. So going back to 2 decades ago, so we were the school around in 2003, 2004. We had implemented our own system of digital technology where our chairperson, Mrs. Alka Sharma, she wanted she wanted a very foolproof system that, my children should learn, and they should learn in a way from, sending the computers in the summer vacation to the students. So she wanted that too. So that progressive mindset is needed. And for that, our school was she was given the president award also. But having said that, my all 3 schools in Udaipur, though Udaipur is a B tier city, we have all Promethean boards, and you name it, name the technology, and the management is pretty progressive in, whatever suggestions principals are giving. So they are already in tangent intent with us that, okay, let's go ahead and do it. So you were talking about G Suite, you were talking about Microsoft Teams. It was a challenge initially for the teachers to get into the routine, but when the first lockdown was announced, we were prepared. So before the government could say anything, from 17th of 18th of March, we had started the online classes. And those before 18th of March, those 3 days we had run pilot classes amongst ourselves, the teachers and us. So it was also an evolution and journey. We started from Zoom, then we went to Edmodo, then we went to Cisco WebEx, and then it was, Google Meet, and it is going to stay Google Meet for education, because, it is very easy for us to share with the parents also if we need some information. So I feel that, it is said that the innovative methods, innovative technology, it is the need of hour, and it is going to stay. And we do a lot of, as you said, I am in a very progressive school. I'm a very progressive educationist. We keep on experimenting the things with the children, that whatever is needed for them, whatever my children are able to learn faster, their concepts are being clear, and these kids get very attached or get very familiarized with the technology. When we are trying to teach them certain things, and we give them an experience, and that's a kinesthetic experience where it is in a virtual world, or the active learning or whatever, they understand the things pretty fast.
Yeah, so thank you, Dr. Neelmani, for giving us the experiential learning examples from your school setup. And Andrew, next question is for you. When they have spoken about Dr. Singh and Dr. Neelmani about their experiences, that, okay, this is what they adapted and adopted to during pandemic. And then there were a lot of, there was an whole influx of digital tools. And sometimes I felt when we were talking on different forums that it became very difficult for the management or the leaders to decide which one to pick and which one not to pick, and how much training you can do for the teachers. So in that perspective, so how do you think, Matific fill this learning gap with its pedagogy focused approach? Because it's very important that we take care of the pedagogy and according to the socio-cultural context. So what works for Australia may not work for India or any other country. So how did you take care of that, and also your views on this approach?
Thank you. So first of all, I happen to be in Australia, but Matific has been a global company from its inception. So we have far more users in India than we do in Australia. So I spend more time talking to Indian teachers than I do Australian teachers. But there are certain universals, and from our point of view, one of the most significant things that can impact a child's education is a phenomenon that I'm sure everyone here is familiar with, and that is called math anxiety. And it is particularly difficult when students start with knowledge gaps and they come to do mathematics, and then they do their best effort, and then the computer just puts a big red X on the screen, or the teacher marks a big red X and they get 0 out of 10. And that experience can only snowball. As students do engage with mathematics again and again, the quality of the tool that they are using and the goals of the tool that they are using can very quickly alienate students from success in mathematics. And it's just about a psychological approach. So at Matific, we have always been devoted to our 5 pedagogical principles. So first and foremost, we want to teach students conceptual understanding. We don't want students to just learn how to what's called turn the handle or just do the algorithms. That's something that we're not interested in. We want to engage students directly with mathematical concepts. And we want to encourage students to think critically and do it in a meaningful context. So if you look in Matific, you will find that you have characters who have problems that you can help them solve, rather than just asking them, what is 10 times 14 in an answer box? We actually provide some context, some narrative, some story for the students to engage in. We also try to do personalized learning. I spoke about that a little bit before, making sure that if a student does make a mistake, we have a mentor character, which really goes to the socio-emotional learning that encourages them when they do well, that rewards them and encourages them when they do not so well, and then go back and try again. Everything about the way that we have constructed our metagame is meant to encourage good attitudes towards learning, resilience, and a positive attitude towards mathematics. And that for us, if we can encourage that in the student, but we also want to encourage that in the teacher. If the teacher can look at a product such as ours and see it's full of fun, it's full of characters, but it's also really teaching mathematics. We want to make the teachers excited to use the tool. For the content itself, a lot of edtech products out there sell themselves by, oh, look at all these spreadsheet reports, pie charts, bar graphs you're going to get as a teacher, just the information that you will get. But then it comes to implementing it, and the students don't want to sit still and do 45 minutes worth of multiple choice questions. So for us, we want to make sure that the teachers are as excited as students to implement it in their classroom, and that students are rewarded for the right kinds of behaviors.
Thank you, Andrew, for such a lovely explanation of things. And I just totally got immersed into it, because I remember during my days of education when I was teaching, one of the students who has this math anxiety, now luckily she's doing her MBA. We worked on the comic, the mathematics comic, which because she was very good at art. So that is what I think with digital tools, I think the students can do that. And thanks to the educators who have joined us for this. And now, as I mentioned to you before we had the introduction of the panelists, we have somebody who has been waiting very calmly, patiently, though he's a student. So Puranjay Raj Singh, can you switch on your camera? And
yes, definitely.
we can have focus on his screen. So let me just introduce our new panelist for this special session. Puranjay Raj Singh Shekhawat is from Rockwoods International School. He discovered his love for maths in first grade for a rather silly reason, as he says. It was that he did not need to write as much as in maths as he needed in other subjects. I completely agree with you, Puranjay. That was the reason I got into mathematics at my school time. So rather just solve fun problems, and the love only grew as time went on. Due to that, he has participated in every single mathematics activity imaginable and has won most of them. And he only hopes for his love of mathematics to grow and become a theoretical physicist when he grows up. So, Puranjay, you can say hello to the audience here who are there. And Andrew, he's going to ask you a question. He's going to ask you a question. So he is the moderator for this particular question. Puranjay, over to you.
So yeah, I wanted to ask, I know that you've been playing some of Matific. There's lots of different places and islands and areas of Matific to explore. What is your favorite part of Matific?
You see, when we talk about a platform like Matific, it's hard to just lower it down to one thing. It's like asking what's your favorite song or what's your favorite movie. But you have to group it together and talk about it as a whole. And when I do that, my favorite part about Matific is how much it feels like a role-playing video game. It feels like that you have to, there's a certain story that you have to follow. There's a story in every single mini game, and everything is pinpoint to one thing. If you want to go on Adventure Island, you actually need a license to go on Adventure Island so you can fly a plane. You need a license to do that. And not that, if not that, there's a story to everything. You have homework assigned by Matific to you. You can train in the training zone in Matific. It feels very much like a game in which you're, instead of fighting monsters, you have to actually solve mathematical questions to progress further in the story. And the questions can range from a variety of topics, from ratios to percentages to fractions, which makes it really engaging. And especially in the recent years where there's been a lot of modernization and everything is getting replaced by technology, even textbooks at one point, Matific feels like an online tutor for me where I can learn whenever I feel like without there actually being a time limit. It makes me give myself full freedom over it. I can customize my avatar however I want. I can give it big eyes with small pupils. I can give it antennas. I can give it any kind of hair I want. I can give it a big mouth. I can give it a small mouth. I can give it a mouth with no teeth, which makes me, it gives me complete freedom over what I want to do. I can play with friends in arena. And that's what my favorite part about it. That's my favorite part. It feels like a game without actually being one, while helping me in mathematics in the same time.
Thank you very much. That's a great answer. And I thought just a very quick follow-up question. Do you feel there are lots of video games out there that are really, really fun, but we try really hard at Matific to strike the balance between fun and learning. Do you feel like you learn and have fun, or is it mainly about having fun or learning? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I would say learning has a slight edge here over fun, because like it is fun, but the main point of Matific is to learn mathematics. So learning definitely has a slight edge over fun here.
Okay, thank you. That's great.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Puranjay, for answering this, and stay with us and keep listening, and you can ask and you can pose questions to any of these panelists now. And then we have the next section coming up, which will be the solution, the role of teachers in implementing digital tools. Now, these are the major stakeholders when we talk about, and yes, we have faced concerns with them when the teachers were laid off, but then they have, I think they, at any point of time, they need a big round of applause for adapting to the new technology and keeping up the pace with these new age learners with us who are there, whether they are 4-year-old or 5-year-old. So we'll cover some questions in this section for all the panelists here. So first question is for Dr. Singh again. When it comes to the school teachers, how did your school teachers accommodate digital tools during COVID lockdown? That would be my question to Dr. Singh.
Right. Thank you for that question, Ms. Chetna. So that's a very good question. And first of all, I wanted to really appreciate Puranjay. Puranjay, you were excellent. I loved the way you spoke. That's when we say the future of our leaders. This is what we want to see. So it's really happy to see the way you spoke. Congratulations to you, and I really appreciated the way you've been connecting and talking about your experience. So wonderful, Puranjay, excellent. So when we talk about and just bear with me because I'm in the middle of a forest, so my internet could sometimes go off. One of the campuses where I'm at, it's in the middle of a forest. So Ms. Chetna, just give me a nudge if by any chance I can't be heard or seen, because the internet can be a little flaky sometimes because we're in the middle of a forest. Anyhow, so talking about the challenges of the COVID situation when it came to the learning part. It was, I'll give you a quick instance. So the moment the first lockdown was announced, all of us know in India, especially, just like that, the Prime Minister just announced within a day, okay, the country's on a lockdown. So for the educationists, it was like, okay, we can quickly move to tool A, tool B. But I had this one interesting story from my physical education teacher. He's like, what do I do? Because how do I've been doing physical, how do I bring physical education online? Because that was a good question. So it's all to do with hands-on. So interestingly, it's always that's a, because hang on, let me just check if I'm able to switch to a better network, guys. Just bear with me for a second, because I think there is an internet problem.
There's a slight lag. Yeah.
Slight lag. Yeah. I'm just going to fix that right now. Just bear with me. So yeah, I was just giving an example of a genuine point that, okay, now there's a lockdown. How do I run the Cambridge physical education curriculum? Because that was part of our core subject. So we came up with a simple solution. I said, okay, you know what? And it was like in the moment solution. So we said, okay, you know what? You're stuck at your house. The kid is stuck at their house. The parents are with the kid. And interestingly, this was the first time in India, especially with the millennial parents, that they've realized what parenting means. Because till now we were surrogating parenting in India. The child goes to school and then goes to football and then goes to basketball. But now the parent and the child are stuck in a room. So now what do we do? So for the physical education teacher, we said, okay, you're going to record the, the activity that you want to do. And then you're going to record the video and you're going to send, do that with their parents and their grandparents, and they recorded it and send it back. It was a very simple solution, actually, but it created an amazing sort of ripple effect, because it actually gave something for the parents, the children, and the grandparents to do it together, to connect one video from the physical education teacher. And as a family together, we're going to do this amazing activity. Then we're going to record it. And then when we're sending it back. And then, of course, he would send a theoretical, paper to it. So the logic was, there was a challenge, yes, for schools. But I think most of our educators are very resilient. And not just in India, all over the world, we faced it with a very, we always say that the educators were the unsung heroes of the pandemic for a reason, because they quickly adapted, they quickly evolved. And you wouldn't believe, like, curriculums where we work now with Cambridge and Waldorf. Waldorf curriculum is all about reverence and compassion. So our children were so used to, even, our children, before they go, they clean the classroom. And they were so used to cleaning the classroom. So they started cleaning. The mothers were like calling us and saying, okay, what's happening? Because the kids are cleaning the house all day. They're cooking all day. So what do we do? I said, it's great. So the thing was, there was an evolution. There was a challenge, but I think the challenge was converted into a new educational opportunity by schools. And of course, there was a good support at that point, even by the edtechs, because without the technology simulation, it would not have been possible. And at the same time, I want to take this opportunity to genuinely celebrate teachers, educators, and managements also in certain, because it was the teachers who were the real doctors. I mean, we went to the doctors when we get sick, right? But the teacher was the only window for the child in that lockdown that they could use to kind of learn something new and connect with someone. So we always say educators are not just subject teachers, they're counselors. An educator was actually seen by the parents during the pandemic. So I would say the COVID situation, although it was a very horrific element for our world, it also became a point where educators were taken seriously, and schools were taken seriously, and the involvement of blend, as we say, edtech and schools, it started making sense. Now we're at a point where we can take it to the next level.
Of course. Thank you, Dr. Singh, for putting it so elaboratively. And I think the example, I mean, if we can talk about the examples of the teachers who have adopted, in that sense, that whether it's a physical education teacher or the co-scholastic one, so they have done beautifully during this pandemic, and especially when it comes to the transaction of the curriculum. So continuing with our discussion about how teachers have been empowered into this situation, and especially when how they are moving and how they are progressing, because I think professional development should be, and it should be a very critical element to any school who wants to be into the 21st century skills when we talk about. So Dr. Neelmani, picking up from the cues from Dr. Singh, I would like to ask you that how you think can we equip our teacher fraternity with the latest digital tools in education, especially when you have so much to choose from, and there's so much of, I mean, nobody does the need analysis for that, okay, what is actually required in that particular situation or that particular kind of every school is a miniature society, I call it. So how do you handle this situation, that how do you equip your teachers with the digital tools? Over to you, Dr. Neelmani.
Thank you. Thank you. See, basically, I strongly believe that we are like the management, the principal. We are like architects. We have something in mind. We have the vision, but ultimately who has to fulfill it? It has to be done by the teachers themselves. So the best thing is adapting the model of participative leadership and involving them in the decision that what is the best solution for them. So whatever comes to us, so we discuss with them, we talk to them that, okay, this is the thing. You start doing it and we take a call. So I will just take you back to a decade ago, I would say. So I was a principal of a school wherein I wanted to bring in Apple education. So, and, you know, from a very that chalk and talk and medium, and wherein, you know, what the best was the activity based learning and active learning, and technology was nothing except the ICT classrooms and all that. And I thought that we have to do that. Now, how we did that? So the first was that, we discussed with them, we talked to them, and then I said that, okay, if you all get the iPads, and our work will be so easy, we'll be doing things like that, we'll have Apple TVs in the classroom, and you can do. So there was something, that sense of ownership was there, that okay, we will be doing that. So when you are, so basically my mantra is always that whatever I want to get it done from teachers, I enroute it through them. So they tell us that, ma'am, let's do it this way. And so there, it is a win-win situation. So now talking about the lockdown, the technology, and Mr. Singh shared a lot of things that, how we evolved and how we went through it. And I also shared. So now talking about now at the present, because, this is going to continue. In fact, the virtual world or the hybrid learning, now we don't have to, I'm in Udaipur. So when it is lot of, heat wave is there, declare a holiday. Rains are there, declare a holiday. When it is so yeah, the collector says that, okay, it's a holiday because the heat wave is too much, or the cold wave is too much. So now this is not going to stop my children from learning. And then what we are doing is, when we are talking about teachers, so their job is never easy. So once a teacher, always a teacher. So with the growing popularity of hybrid learning and increased use of technology, so the best thing is to train them. So we train them on a weekly basis, we train them on a fortnightly basis, we are in touch with them throughout. And there are yes, so the challenges need to be converted into opportunities. And however, there are a lot of helpful resources that, online teaching can be of done, and what all students can do, so what all teachers can do. So there is sudden, they might feel a little overwhelmed with the sudden shift in teaching styles. So we have a consultant with us, who is he does teaching just out of passion. He's a chemistry teacher with 45 years of experience. So, but the way he adapted the technology to teach the students was amazing, and we used to help them, we used to help him a lot. So when incorporated wisely, the teaching process, the technology will help them create a more engaging experience for the students. So what all you can do, there is a communication. Of course, we are using the platform, and teachers are now, initially it was little tough, but they have got used to it. The homework, the content creation, visualization, engagement and collaboration, and lot of references that they can use using the technology. Now, as you said, from Google Meet to Microsoft to Cisco WebEx, there are lots and lots of, but I think the best, which I think most of the schools all over the world are using, they are taking help of Microsoft and Google Meet. So these are the two major things, and maybe a few other ones also, not that I know of. So the best thing when you are, it's to upgrade the teachers on a daily basis. So whatever, and it is on, I feel that as a school head, as a school principal, it is my responsibility to motivate them and to guide them in a manner that they are able to do that. So if I come across a wonderful training, which is an online training or an offline training, I will, put it across in our group. We have a WhatsApp group of teachers, and I motivate them that, okay, do it. You were talking about my CIDT training. So a leader has to lead from the front. So the CIDT training was I just did it to motivate my teachers. I said, okay, let me do it with you. So I will do it with you. Let's do it together. So then when they see that, our leader is leading us from within, not from the front, it's the time that we are part of them. And when they feel confident, when they feel that there is a sense of belongingness, and there is a transparency, there is trust, compassion, then I think that it's all, I always feel it's all about, being emotionally connected to your team, and everything falls in place. Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Mani, for elaborating on this. And I think what you are saying is that you have to lead from the front, lead by example. And that's what transformational leadership is all about, that until you do it yourself, you would not know what are the concerns, what are the feedbacks from everybody. So yeah, so going forward, Andrew, the question is for you now, as the sequence goes for us. So what are the most common trends, feedback you have witnessed from teachers using Matific? And I would love to hear from you that what is the weirdest feedback which you would have received, and what is the best feedback which you have received?
So the best and weirdest feedback. So I'd say that I can combine them and answer them both in one, which is that for teachers who successfully implement Matific in class, a feedback that we get quite a lot is that my kids love Matific so much that they won't do anything else, and they ask us for some way to, help them out here. And it usually means that we need to make more content for Matific. So I'd say that's not only, it's great to hear, because we always want to help students feel really excited to do mathematics. And when we hear about a classroom full of kids all begging to use Matific, it's like, how many classrooms full of kids beg to do their maths homework? We feel like we're really making an impact there. In terms of the first question, in terms of trends, I just wanted to address something that Dr. Mani said, which is it's about attitude and about a community of teachers. For us, the number one trend that I've noticed in terms of successful implementation of Matific is that there are, in schools that use Matific, there are two kinds of schools, broadly speaking. There is the first kind of school where there are one or two teachers who really enjoy using it, and then there are 6 or 7 or 60 other teachers that don't ever really use it. And then there are the schools where everyone uses it. And I feel like that connection really comes down to whether you're using Matific or whether you're using some other EdTech tool, your attitude to that tool can be contagious. So if you really like an EdTech tool, then speak to others in your community of practice and help them understand better and make better use of the tool. If your school principal has said, we're going to use this tool, and you're not very excited about it, then find someone who is excited about it, one of your colleagues. Because if you aren't excited to use the tool, then your students will absolutely pick up on that. And that will transfer into just a failure of using the tool in your classrooms. And it can be quite disheartening because they try this tool, and then for the principals say, well, that tool didn't work, or we'll try another tool and another tool. And it just becomes quite teacher fatigue, tool fatigue, they call it, is quite prevalent. So the one thing I would say is that the Matific and any EdTech tool works best when teachers are afforded the time to become familiar with the tool, and they can become advocates, or they have advocates for the tool within their community of practice. The other trend I would say is that there are two different schools of thought. There's the much more teacher-led learning. It's kind of closer to the chalk and talk practice. And then there's the student-led learning approach. And at Matific, we try and be a toolbox for both kinds of teachers. So I'd say that, again, if you're using Matific, both of those approaches are available. If you're using some other tool, the first thing that I would ask of your principal or of your director of learning, or whoever it is who is this centered on? Is it teacher-centered learning and student, or is it a student-centered learning approach? And really try and make it successful. There is lots of research out there saying student-centered is better, teacher-centered is better, but whatever it is, just make sure you have that clarity so that you can effectively deliver those lessons.
Thank you, Andrew. And your next question to our panelists, the future physicist Puranjay.
It's wonderful to speak to you. I often think to myself that I wish that I had Matific when I was your age. But I guess I'd just like to give you the opportunity to talk about your experience of using Matific what it feels like, what you feel like you learn, and yeah, what's your experience been like?
To answer that, I have to pick something from the answer I gave before. As I already told that in the recent years, when everything is being modernized, everything is being replaced by technology. From my personal experience, every single Gen Z kid at this point has some kind of phone, has a phone, tablet, and most of the time they're playing games on it. Same here. I have a phone. I play games on it. Matter, and a lot of times I forget to study regarding that. But now, now that I have Matific, I still do play other games, but when I'm playing Matific, it feels like I'm playing a game while I'm learning maths. As I already told, it feels like a game, and that's the best part about it. And it helps me cope up in maths because a lot of times exam stress of maths can get to you because maths is one of the most stressful subjects. Instead of just picking up a book which stresses you even more because of how many paragraphs there are of equations to remember, you can come to Matific, solve few questions to clear your doubts. You can play with your friends so you know which who is a better mathematician between you guys. You can go on training mode in the training zone, and you can train. You can do the homework assigned by Matific. You can go on adventure island to go on very fun adventures such as ratio and proportion. And it really helps me to cope up in maths because in maths, when we think about it, a lot of people think that the best way to learn maths is to solve problems and learn from the book. But in Matific, it does we can solve problems without the book. All we need is our mind. And the second part is that it increased my mental maths capability. In the recent world, everybody will either solve it with the calculator or will do it manually. In Matific, you don't have that kind of thing. So in Matific, you have to solve even fractions and ratios and in your mind, which really increases your mental ability, not your written, your mental ability, which will arguably help you more in future exams. So my overall experience in Matific would be that it's like a AI teacher to me, an artificial intelligent teacher, which teaches me when I can't get in touch with my teacher and can basically learn whenever I want.
It's
Lovely.
wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, Karandeep. So I think, Andrew, you have got a brand ambassador for Matific from here.
Mm,
And you should be thanking
absolutely. And I got to say, it's hearing reflections like that makes me very glad that we've worked very hard for many years on our product, and this warms my heart. So
Yes.
thank you, Prajay. I'm very pleased to
Thank you,
hear it.
Karandeep. And so this comes to the end, but before we do that, I would like to tell all the attendees that there would be a feedback survey once we finish with this session. So please stay with us. And if you have any questions, we'll take them up. But before that, maybe a 30, 45 seconds, 1 minute summary from each one of you, starting with Dr. Neil Money, like your experience, takeaways, or whatever message you want to, what would be the future trend, anything from your side.
Thank you. Of course, I hope this was a good session, and proud of you, Puranjay, that you're my student, and he has done it independently. I have not, helped him at all. So really proud of you. Well done. As I said that for me, technology and digital tools, they are the future. So we cannot get away with it. We have to equip ourselves. We have to equip our teachers. We have to equip our students. And the best thing is the professional development in the teachers. So because if they are in sync with the thought processes of the school management, then everything falls in place. So I am really blessed and fortunate that, I work in a place where we all, my director, my chairperson, and I are on the same platform when it comes to the beneficial of teachers, beneficial for the students, what is best for them, whatever is requires to be a progressive mindset organization, we do that. And yes, and my messages, my best wishes and all the best to Andrew. And I hope that this really bridges the learning gaps we were talking about, and we are able to do the things well. Thank you so much for this excellent opportunity, Chetna. And of course to Zainab also in her absentia, if she's not there, my regards to her also.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your kind words to everyone, and I think there's a lot of learning for all of us in bridging this learning gaps. And Dr. Karan, what about you? What are your thoughts and what is your summary of this session, or what are you going to give to the participants or the attendees who are here?
Thank you. First of all, it's been a very interesting session because there are different kinds of people coming in and talking. But of course, I'm very happy to see how Karandeep put a very strong point that gamification of learning is the future. It was a beautiful point, and from a school ecosystem. See, when we talk about education, whether it's edtech, whether it's K-12 and all, the only way it's going to work really well in the future is when we move from the sea of competition to the sea of collaboration. That's the only way forward. See, the I factor, especially with, unfortunately, and I have to say, in India, the I factor has become very strong. It's still very strong. I can do it. You can't do it. I mean, think about football. Could you score by yourself? You look at any sport or any activity, it's always collaboration, it's teamwork. So I think the time is right because now we understand how edtechs can support K-12s, and K-12s understand how much of it tech assimilation we need. So the time is for collaborative approach. The time is for knowledge sharing. See, as a school, if we know something, it is actually more empowering to sharing it with someone rather than saying, oh, this is mine, And as rightly we said, do not script children, do not put them into boxes. Okay, you got to speak this way, you got to be that way. Generally, a lot of schools are in that mindset, perfection. There is nothing called academic perfection. What we can achieve maximum is academic excellence. So it's a beautiful time in the world. At the same time, it's an interestingly challenging time with what's happening in the world. I think the only way it can be fixed is through student-centric education and creating leaders who can genuinely, create an equilibrium between technology and, quality-based education. So I would say it's a wonderful session. I would say thanks to even Dr. Vasudha, to Andrew for sharing your perspective. Andrew definitely will be talking in the coming days also, and of course with Ms. Chetna, I've been interacting with her on certain interesting topics. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of value addition that's going to come. So I would say to all the teachers who've attended, everyone, all principals, please collaborate. We can't take our knowledge to the grave, but if we take it to the grave, there was no knowledge in the first place. So let's share it with each other, especially the education industry. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Singh, for lovely words. And I think that's the takeaway, that collaboration over competition should be our motto when we are trying to cater to a society where we have 250 million learners around us. So that should be the way for all of us, whichever way, whether it is talk and talk method, whether it is digital tools, everything has to be blended beautifully together, which works for whichever segment is what should be the way forward for us, all of us. And last but not the least, Andrew, your words, your experience.
So first of all, thank you to Ms. Chetna, Dr. Singh, Dr. Mani, Paranjay. It has been a pleasure being on this panel with you this morning. If there is one thing that I want to say to close this off, it's that EdTech should always be something that is a tool that helps you do better in your classroom. And if there's one thing that I have learned over the years, is that that doesn't always translate. There are lots of teachers who feel like the EdTech is getting in the way, it's something else that they need to get on top of, and it's not really helping them be a better teacher. So it's EdTech's fundamental problem. And at Matific, we try and be the best EdTech tool out there. So I would encourage everyone to take a look if you haven't already, but you may not be in any sort of decision-making capability yourself. You may be using a different tool. The one thing I would say, just to echo what Dr. Singh said, is that if you don't feel excited about using whatever edtech solution you have, then find someone in your circle who is excited about it, who knows a bit more than you, and help translate that infectious enthusiasm about edtech. I believe that India as a nation can get as excited about edtech as they can about a lot of other things as well. And if as a nation, India and the rest of the world can really embrace the promise and the potential of edtech, then we can see, we can better recover from the last couple of years and everything that that's put us through. But we can then progress and go on even to reach even greater heights. So thank you all.
Thank you, Andrew, for I think you've culminated it so well with your words and yes. Puranjay, would you like to say something before I go with my closing remarks?
Yeah, ma'am. It's been a really great opportunity to come here, and it's a great opportunity because it's not a lot of times I can go on such an important panel meeting and discuss my points and how I feel about a certain app. And it was a really beautiful panel meeting. I enjoyed it very much. I got to express my points and how I like Matific. Thank you, Mr. Andrews. Everybody spoke too highly of me. I feel like still everybody spoke too highly of me. I'm not as good, but thank you.
Okay, and I read on your shirt what is written.
Even I don't know. It's
Normal is boring.
yes.
Yeah, so that's what I think what gamification will do to all of us. And thank you, Puranjay, for lovely words. And it was pleasure having you here, and Dr. Neelmani for agreeing to this kind of a twist for our sessions, because that's what I feel at Association of Indian Principals we should bring not only the academia or the educators, but the learners who are going to be the future for all of us. So with this, I think what takeaways are there for all of us would be, I would just try to summarize it, whatever I have taken from your point of views. The first one would be for me is providing teachers with simple teaching guides combined with strong monitoring and feedback systems, which can help them structure their pedagogical approach and ensure that children learn effectively. And also somewhere the differentiated learning through the digital tools would be a beautiful way of seeing the blended learning going on in future. The second, because there is a digital divide, so we can maybe think of increased use of mass media to broadcast lessons in areas, and especially the schools like yours, Dr. Neelmani and Dr. Singh, when we are talking about the Waldorf strategies, or Waldorf school philosophy. I think it's a beautiful philosophy. So why not to take them to the community radios where we have the poor internet connectivity. It would help bridge the digital divide, and implementing new learning techniques which will enable students to be active participants. Maybe Puranjay could be one of the mentor there with those students. Yeah. So that's what I feel because with the students. So better student-teacher ratio, of course, is one of the challenge for all of us in India. And consistent institutional supports, as Dr. Neelmani said, that yes, if you have the right management, right teachers, and right students and parents, it all culminates into what it flourishes more. So, and last but not the least, each and every stakeholder of the society, I feel, must contribute in bridging this digital divide for our learners to be happy, well-read, and prepared for the future. On this note, I think we have not taken much time, and we don't have time for the Q&A, I think, Zainab, so we'll set it up. So on this note, I would like to thank Andrew for being here. I think it's the afternoon time for you, and Dr. Neelmani and Dr. Singh for sparing your time with us, agreeing to be on the panel with the Association of Indian Principals, and Puranjay and Matific, of course, for arranging everything so beautifully, to the backend team for being so seamless and so cool about it. So thank you so much, each one of you, and looking forward to see you in many more forums like this. As Dr. Singh said, collaboration over competition should be the way. We should collaborate. We should feel privileged that we are into this sector. So thank you, each one of you. And
thank you. Have a wonderful day.